Welcome to Different Thinking for Different Times. I'm Steve Lentini. I'm your host. I am director and the owner of Lord and Lentini Training for Life and the Best, Getting Better. So Different Thinking for Different Times is about being awake versus woke. Being awake, waking up and jumping into your life is about understanding that we can have a level of thinking above our thinking, and that takes development. And when I died on November 18th, 2002, and was on the other side, nothing from here was there. And so the theme of this broadcast and podcast is about understanding that everything here is limited and has its opposites. It's small minded thinking. It's what I call the acorn brain. You look at an acorn and you know that immediately there's so much other potential, limitless potential, that it could become an oak tree, but it has to be crushed and broken open and stomped into the ground and exist in a period of darkness, right, under the ground, and then survive as a sprout and as a sapling with so many things against it, right? The odds are against it becoming an oak tree. And that's the same for our thinking. Here we need the ego brain, the edging God out thinking that is limited and judgmental and small minded. And when I was on the other side, one with everything and nothing, there was no thinking, no small minded thinking. In fact, nothing from here was there. Nothing from our small minded thinking exists when you're one with the infinite. And so, one second I was here in a body with very limited, small minded, judgmental thinking, and the next second I was one with everything and nothing, one with the infinite. And it's just an experience that you'll all have at some point in time. I just hope it's not in the next minute or tonight. And if it is, let me ask you, have you done everything that you wanted to do? Have you lifted up those around you? Have you lived in the limitless versus the small-minded thinking? Because I was doing a seminar and I was fine one second, never had any symptoms, and the next second I was in an ambulance and in the emergency room and then in intensive care. And on the fifth day, November 18th, 2002, I flatlined. And so up until that point, I thought I was awake. More likely, I was part of the woke crowd. Like President Obama eloquently said, former President Obama eloquently said, if you think you're part of the woke crowd and you're working to enforce your thinking or to force your thinking upon others, that's small-minded and not part of the woke crowd, because the woke crowd understands only one thing, that you must do it our way or my way. And different thinking for different times is understanding you only have you that you can control. So your job is you. Our job is not all the people around us. It's, in fact, the opposite, to let everyone else have their journey and their learning, and to come to a space where you can embrace everyone else and embrace all the differences. After all, this is the land of opposites. So to embrace all the others around you as different, and imagine if everyone was the same. Now we have just a mindless existence, one without challenges, one without opportunities for growth, one without opportunities for compromise and negotiation and all the things that truly make relationship. All relationship is just an invitation to negotiation. And so our job is to work to understand others, and more importantly, to be awake is to only work on the thing you can control, the one person you can control, and that's you. And so to develop a level of thinking above your thinking over time is to look at, where do you react? Where do you fall into the automatic response, believing the automatic thought, right? So the automatic thought leads to an automatic response, which typically is small-minded. For when I was on the other side, there was no judgment of my negative or my sins or mistakes. There was only the mention in my life review, only what flashed before me was the good I had done, the lives I had touched. And so that's our job. Our job here is to overcome ourselves and not others, but to embrace others and to look at the differences as fun, as an invitation into negotiation, and maybe even consider the other side. But any group or even individual that wants to change everyone else around them and to force their thinking upon others is small-minded, very small-minded, in fact. And so you won't learn that until you get on the other side, and not very many of us have an opportunity like I did to come back and get a second chance at life. And so November 18th is my second birthday. 17 years ago, November 18th, I flatlined and I was one with the other side. And you have to take my word for it at this point until you experience it, and you can experiment with your life. You can begin to consider others around you and why do they bug you so much? They actually bug you because they're an invitation to grow and to change your mind and to perhaps consider the other side. And I think all the characters that show up now in my life bugging me are the infinite, the universe, the God, the goddess, the divine in disguise, testing me. Will I embrace them? Will I just let them pass through my consciousness without a reaction? Will I say, oh, that's interesting? Because I believe the universe has a sense of humor, and that we might even come back as the thing that bugs us the most, the person that bugs us the most. We might come back like them, the race that bugs us the most, the tiniest small-minded thinking. We might, in fact, come back as whatever we judge, because now we get to experience it. And for people that wonder and worry about others who commit a crime, maybe so heinous that we want them not only to suffer in prison for the rest of their life, but also to burn in hell forever, we might come back as, if we commit a crime, we might come back as the victim that we imposed our act upon so that we could experience just the effect of what the crime we committed. We might come back and be murdered if we're a murderer. We might come back as the race that we rail against, or even the political slant that we cannot embrace, or that we cannot even consider or negotiate with. Or we might come back as that sexual preference that we decide that we don't agree with, and we believe that they should too burn in hell forever. And it has me laughing at life, right? That it truly is an invitation to let others have their way, and for me to learn how to embrace them. It doesn't mean that I accept people who commit heinous acts as they are. It's just that it's their journey. It's their choice. I have no control over it. Do I agree with it? No. But I don't consider any thought or any act. In fact, I have very, very few of those thoughts about not only should you die, or spend your life in prison. I have very few of those thoughts that you should also burn in hell forever. Even as a young child, I always looked at the good and the potential in others to do good. And that somehow I knew the only life I could control was my own, and I was not perfect. Certainly I had judgments. And that 1 second where I was in the hospital room, and the next second in the infinite, I was given that gift of looking at infinite thinking, something way beyond vengeance and revenge and anger, for none of that was there. While I believe, too, the inspired people that wrote about God in what's called the Bible, that inspiration didn't just end 4,000 or 5,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, whenever those inspired to write passed, or whenever those books were published, that inspiration from the divine never ends. It's why life itself is growing. And the fact that life itself is an expression of growth, right? We're supposed to continue to grow and to expand our thinking and to get beyond and get over all those places where we judge others. I mean, just look at families that can't get along. One segment of the family doesn't get along with the other. One faction in the household. Or perhaps people carry a judgment about their parents and blame their life upon their parents and become victims of circumstance, or they blame their circumstances on a boss or on a relationship partner or on another segment of population. One says the other oppressed them. And that happens in so many different places, whether it's politically or racially or sexually. You can look around and see the stories of oppression. Can you imagine not liking heterosexuals or gay people and then coming back to experience that? What a teacher that would be. Now, I don't have proof that that part's true, but I do believe life and the universe, the divine, the goddess, the God, the Christ-like thinking, the Buddha-like thinking, the Muhammad-like thinking, the Abraham-like thinking, the Moses thinking, that all of those ideas that one race or religion or sexual preference or political preference has any advantage over another and gain one's entrance into heaven, that there is no such place. There's only the eternal, the infinite. That it's interesting too that we're traveling on a garden rock through the midst of a vacuum in an infinite space, it's called, right? An infinite vacuum where there's no air or anything that we could survive in 4 or 5 miles above Earth. And yet everything here for life is happening exactly as it should on a garden rock floating around at the perfect spot around an exposed nuclear fusion plant that we call the sun. So what I'm doing myself is making my life an experiment and continuing in a cause and effect world to put out good energy and good thinking and believing in the best of others. And if someone does something to me recently, I had a friend who I had let use my car so that they could advance their business, especially since I was home a lot and the car was parked in a parking garage. And I said, well, go ahead and use it. And that person chose after a few months to not even communicate with me. And I thought, okay, well, that's a journey that he has in life. And he has things to get over because he could not even receive the gift of getting a car to use. And then, interestingly enough, somehow was mad at me for providing him the opportunity to grow. And so for me to just let him go, let it go. And really, to me, there was nothing to forgive. It was just an experience. And I would let someone use the car again tomorrow. It doesn't matter to me, right? The car's just sitting anyway, except for the times that I travel. So my job is to continue to work on me. And that's what I want people to consider, is to make their life an experiment and prove to themselves the power they have when they do good. Ponder how you feel when you do good. And somehow that's etched into the fabric of time. I don't know how. But that's all that was shown to me in my life review. And it makes sense to me that where the infinite is, the darkness in humans cannot even exist there, right? That the God, the goddess, the divine, the Christ-like consciousness, the Muhammad consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, whatever you call it, is not concerned with the evil that we do, the mistakes we make, or the sin, in quotes, that we supposedly commit. What we're doing is falling down, and we're supposed to. That's how we learn here. And we climb the ladder of making new choices, especially when we recognize we're not more than anyone and we're not less than anyone, and nothing from this physical world comes with us. Everything I had was gone in a heartbeat. I was in intensive care in the hospital bed with 2 people visiting me 1 second, and the next second I was one with everything and nothing. And truly nothing from here was there. There was no mention of the houses I had purchased and sold, and the investments I made, the jobs I had, the titles, nothing mentioned about the books I had written, nothing mentioned about the work I had done, which in my mind, up until that time, made me who I was. And truly, none of that makes me who I was, because what flashed before me was the good I had done. That's what makes me who I am. When I continue to help others and make a mark on improving my own little mark on improving this world and improving the life of others. And that's our job. And yeah, we get the invitation to be angry. Try New York traffic or Brooklyn traffic. I often get the invitation to judge others and to give them the number one salute, if you know what I mean. And I just observe that about myself and chuckle and say, okay, so I'm so glad to be back in my body where I get to see now the invitation to enroll in the angry or the judgmental and just to resist it and let it go. And what I notice is it only improves my life. It might improve others briefly if I don't give them the number one salute sign. But the one that it does improve is me when I notice I've overcome that kind of thinking and the feeling that it brings. And so that's my urge and calling to others, is to make your life an experiment and look at how you can improve the lives of others, and how when you change your thinking from paying attention to any negative or judgmental or angry or vengeful responses, and to move into forgiveness, total forgiveness, and joy in the moment, and allow no one to take your joy, and to look at the power that you have when you make a positive choice. And that's the beauty of a cause and effect world, that we continue to get the opportunity and the invitation to experiment and enjoy the reason that we're here, which is to learn and grow. So accept others today or not. Forgive others today or not. Resist the temptation to anger. Resist the temptation to make others wrong, because you, after all, have the right stance in life. You have the right religion. You have the right race or the right sexual preference or the right political preference. None of it is true. And it's all worth chuckling over. And to let others have their differences and to embrace them and smile and relax and say, wow, I'm glad and grateful for the differences. And I'm learning and growing by just watching it happen, watching it unfold, and me managing only me. See it for yourself or not. So that's season 1, episode 11. And later on this week, I'll record episode 12. I took a little break last week and enjoyed my travels to New England and meeting my clients and all the others, especially those that show up today in disguise as the divine or the god or the goddess. And I say, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve and to learn and grow. That's how I view all the cast of characters that remind me that I do still have the ego. I still have the temptation to look at that automatic response, the one that's small-minded. So advance yourself into infinite thinking and embrace this existence we've been given as a gift, because truly we live in a miracle. But you have to prove that to yourself, which is what Einstein said. He said the basic question in life to answer is whether the universe is beneficent or not. And he also said that the closer he got to figuring out the origins of life, the more he realized how infinite and wonderful life truly was. And he said, for those who know it not, meaning the miracle, they are as good as a dead, snuffed out candle. So instead of living in small-minded, tight thinking, relax into the miracle and let it invite you into the infinite, limitless possibility thinking, and leave behind any small-minded, acorn brain, human thinking. Thank you. If you know anyone that would like to be interviewed by me about their views, perhaps they had a near-death experience, or Perhaps they have some views that challenge my own. I'd love to hear from anyone, and I would interview them and or answer their questions. Email me, steve@stevelentini.com, steve@stevelentini, Lent, as in Tom, ini.com. Thank you.